Hello, my name is Seamus and welcome to the Entrepreneur Retreats YouTube channel. This video you're about to watch is one of a series that I made from a conversation that I had with Peter Taylor. Peter works as an astrophysicist in UCD, so I thought he was a pretty good person to have this conversation with. And the reason that I decided to have a conversation with him is when we travel around to schools and we talk to different students, often what comes up is the idea of science and faith and the conflict that's involved there. That if you believe in science, that you don't believe in faith, and if you're really into your faith, you just ignore science. Personally, I'm interested in both. I love learning about the world around me, and I do believe what the science books say, and I'm also very interested in my faith as well. But instead of hearing from me, because I'm not qualified as a scientist, I decided it'd be better to actually hear from a living, breathing, working scientist who gets paid for studying science. I thought it was a good idea to not only talk about, the perceived clash between science and faith and how he reconciles those things, but also how he became a scientist, how he became an astrophysicist, what started him on that journey. I think it's always good to hear different people's opinions who work in different areas and see how they became what they are today. I hope you enjoy watching the videos as much as I enjoyed having the conversation with Peter. So without further ado, here is the first video in the series. So Peter, I just wanted to say thanks a million for taking your time out of your busy schedule to chat with me today. We found doing retreats that a lot of people who look into their faith, they've asked us questions of like perceived conflicts with science or the scientific community, So we kind of felt it was better to talk to like a professional scientist, an actual scientist, and to see how you would practice your faith and also pursue, scientific truths as well. So I want to ask straight off the bat, could you tell us what it is that you do?
What it is I do. So I work at a university as a lecturer and a researcher in theoretical physics. So I guess my official title is I'm a theoretical physicist.
And that's my next question. What is a theoretical physicist?
Right. Yeah. I know it's a real conversation ender. What is a theoretical physicist? So essentially, theoretical physics is about coming up with mathematical models for how the universe works. So one way to think about it is by contrasting it with experimental physics. So experimental physics is about exploring physics from the point of view of experimentation, whereas theoretical physics is trying to explore the fundamental nature of reality from the point of view of mathematical models. And there's an important interplay between those two things. So, for example, oftentimes an experimental physicist will be trying to probe, trying to understand, trying to prove or disprove a theory or a model that a theoretical physicist has come up with.
Okay,
so between the two things.
That's actually the first time I've understood what the difference is as well. So So the way I would really simplify it for me to understand is like a theoretical physicist would use maths on a board, whereas the other one would be using like beakers and pouring stuff into stuff.
Absolutely. One's in a lab with a white coat, and one is at a blackboard writing in hard equations.
Or one of those mirror boards where you're writing the other way.
Oh, they're great. Yeah. What do you call those? Light boxes or something, I think they're called. Yeah, really cool.
We're learning so much stuff today. I'm learning stuff today. This is great. So, a theoretical physicist, how did you end up, or why did you end up in this area?
Yeah, good question. So I love maths in school, so that's a good start. And I had a really great mathematics teacher. His name was Patrick Quill, and he kind of recognized that I had a real love and also a talent for mathematics, and so he was always trying to encourage me to do more. So at one point he'd asked me would I enter in the Young Scientist exhibition, which I'd never even heard of. And so myself and a couple of friends entered in, and in 2001 we actually won the Young Scientist exhibition. So that was kind of a big affirmation that this was something I really was good at, because I didn't really have a sense of that. And so from that point on, I guess I kind of knew I was going to take that route. I was going to go down that science or mathematics route. Probably if you'd asked me at that point, I would have thought pure mathematics. But then when I got to university and I started learning about Einstein's theory of relativity and I started learning about quantum mechanics, I just fell in love with those subjects, and I wanted to pursue those things. But to be honest with you, when I was a young teenager, if you'd asked me, I probably would have said I wanted to be a boxer or a football
Yeah,
player. Like there was no academia in my family, no
yeah,
academics. Like my parents left school very young. The only thing that was really in my family is that everybody in my family boxed. We were a
yeah, yeah,
family of boxers, and my sister being, of course, a very famous boxer. Um, so that was probably what I thought I was going to do, something in that vein. So to have somebody come alongside and say, actually, no, you have a real talent for mathematics was a
yeah.
really important step for me.
Because we talk about purpose as well in schools, you know, and finding your purpose and things like that. And it's good to have people kind of come alongside you. Was it difficult? Like you were saying, your family were all in boxing, and I think a lot of people find and not academia, and I think a lot of people would find uh, the opposite kind of push is where they want to get involved in something non-academic, and the push from the family and the peers or school is to pursue the uh sorry now sorry let me say that again.
Hmm?
So it's interesting that you mentioned there about being your family being involved in the boxing and not academia, because a lot of times students would feel that the push from their family to push towards academia. Was it difficult for you, if your family is all in one area, to pursue this other area? Was that tricky? And if it was, how did you kind of deal with that?
Uh, I think, yeah, good question. I think if there was a trickiness, it was this, that there was just no experience in my family in academia. So it was an unknown. So my family were actually really supportive in whatever I wanted to do, but supportive in a kind of maybe a vague psychological sense. It's not like they could come alongside me and kind of go, I recognize that you have a great talent in this area.
Yeah,
So we're kind of relying on outside expertise to identify that talent. Um, and you know, for my dad who ran the local boxing club, for example, you know, he always, I guess he always enjoyed me going along to the boxing club and enjoyed coaching me and enjoyed being in my corner. So there was still maybe a bit of a pressure to do those things as well.
mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think the difficulty was the unknown. Just that there just wasn't really any expertise or any background in my family in academia. So it kind of involved maybe a little bit of a step of faith that this teacher knew what he was talking about, and
Yeah.
that this was really something that that I could pursue professionally.
It can be hard as well to hear a compliment in something that you're not confident in yourself. So like for maybe for you to hear, and I know students hear it this way, like maybe they're really good at football or really good at hurling, and they're told you have a beautiful singing voice, you know. It can be very hard to take that on board and be like, oh, do I actually have a beautiful singing voice?
Exactly, which is why winning the Young Scientist was so important for me.
What was your project?
It was a mathematics project. It was actually a geometry project, and we had come up with this, essentially a proof that you could always arrange regular polygons, like a, you know, like a pentagon or a heptagon, or basically a regular many-sided shape, that you could always arrange them side by side so that they would form a perfect circle, no matter how many sides
Oh yeah.
the polygon had. So it was kind of a geometrical proof. It had been proven before for octagons, but it hadn't been done in the general case, as far as we knew. So it was essentially a mathematics project.
So
But yeah,
sorry, so the young scientist then was kind of like outside confirmation of, hang on, there's something here, like.
exactly that. It was an outside confirmation that I actually had a talent for this thing that I also loved, and gave me the kind of confidence to pursue it more seriously, I think. And I mean, I still did the boxing quite seriously for some years after that, but I think I think at least in my parents' eyes at that point, they kind of knew I was going to end up in something more intellectual than I was in sports. So I think the Young Scientist played a really important role in that.
So why does this mathematical scientific area, why does it interest you? What is it about it that interests you?
Yeah, how long have you got? Yeah, uh, I, I think it's always maybe hard to communicate this to people who don't share the same passion. But especially when you kind of do mathematics in school, maybe, and maybe it feels a little bit laborious or a bit of a chore to you. But the more you go on in the subject, the more you see that there's genuine and sincere beauty in the laws of nature. Like the actual mathematical description of the laws of nature is extraordinarily elegant. It's very beautiful and it's very elegant. So that's one thing, and I think you have to go quite far to see that. Like you have to kind of you have to really engage with the subject seriously, and to really see that there's really a beauty and an elegance to these laws of nature. I think the other thing is there's so many surprises, so many counterintuitive things that show up, and the more you go on as well, the more you learn. There's actually so many things that we don't understand, and maybe that's probably the arena where it most excites me. It's like those things that we don't understand.
Yeah.
Like you have this kind of opportunity to play some role, however small it may be, to play some role to actually contribute to our understanding of something that we don't yet understand. So I think that's a big thing, and it's not actually too unlike the creative process of making music or making art, right? There are these technical skills that you have to learn. Like if you're a musician, those technical skills are, learning the notes, learning the scales, learning chord progressions, learning cadences, learning rhythms, all of those technical skills. If you're an artist, it's learning brush techniques, etc. And if you're a theoretical physicist, those technical things are mathematics, essentially. And once you've mastered those things, you can actually start to create things that are original. And so that's the real reward, right? That you get to produce something original. And there's something amazing about that you would write down something that nobody else in the history of mankind thought of, and it might not ever really be acknowledged by the world. It might not turn out to be very important. A piece of music, maybe nobody will care about it. Maybe 1 million people will care about it. If you kind of say it's the same in physics, you might write down an idea and mathematically that nobody will care about, or maybe lots of people will care about, but in some sense the reward is in producing something original.
Yeah, it's not about being recognized. You've done, like, I think that as well, like, look, no one might see this thing I've done, or no one might read this thing I've written or whatever, but the fact that I did it means enough. That's the victory. I've done this thing that I'm passionate about, and if someone likes it, great. If they don't, that's fine as well.
Exactly that. Yeah, even this thing that we're engaging in right now, like there is a creative element to it, right? We are doing something that nobody else has done in a certain sense. I mean, people have interviews like this, but there's a unique element to it as well, because there's two unique people engaged in the process, and so by that very nature, it is something original. And I think there's great reward in that.
I like the way you think. You're making me passionate about what we're doing here as well.
Exactly.
Well, that was the first question I asked Peter. I have more questions that I asked, and they'll be coming in the subsequent videos. So until next time, slán.